found out that our group project would be on the Freemason organization, I was actually pretty excited. I viewed this project as a chance to get a better understanding of events that took place during my childhood. When I look back at vacations I would take with my father, I remember one specific one that stands out to Washington, D.C. When we got to Washington, we went to eat dinner, and the owner of the restaurant noticed my father's ring and gave him an odd handshake. At 7 years old, I didn't really understand what it all meant. But what I did notice was that they talked for a while, and the next thing that took place kind of blew my mind. As I watched my father point to the table that he wanted to sit at, and then the owner talked to the waiter, and the waiter walked over and talked to people sitting at the table. Seconds later, he took their meals and put them into to-go boxes, and then shuffled us into their table. What I saw next was even more astonishing when my father showed me that the bill read $0. It was cool to be part of one of my dad's stories that he still recites to this day. I figured this presentation would allow us the opportunity to take a brief look at the Freemason organization from the history to the present.
The history of the Freemason organization, the year 1717, the day June 24th. Like most days that are remembered, this day would be a day that would impact the world for centuries to come. The location, the Goose and Gridiron Ale House in St. Paul Churchyard, England. This man, Anthony Sayer, the first known Grand Master, and 3 men that were dubbed Grand Warrens, started the first Grand Lodge. What is a Grand Lodge, you ask?
The Mason Lodge is essentially the beginning and for some the end of their participation in Masonry.
The voice you heard is from this man. He's a Mason brother from New York City, and my dad.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Jonathan Weinrich. I'm a practicing attorney in New York State. I've been a Mason for 25 years on both sides of Masonry, which I'll elaborate a little bit later.
For the first few years, the Grand Lodge was simply an annual feast. And then, like most things, it evolved. It evolved into one of the most secretive organizations, one that is embedded into the culture of the great country we call the United States. In 1721, the Grand Lodge became a regulatory body. By 1730, the organization had grown to over 130 lodges. That means that in 9 years, it grew over 1,300%.
The all-seeing eye. All of us have seen the all-seeing eye in our lifetime. The all-seeing eye, or the eye of the providence as Masons know it, is a symbol showing an eye that is often surrounded by rays of light or glory, and it is usually enclosed by a triangle. It looks just like this. That's right, the all-seeing eye can be found on the back of a $1 bill. This is just another easily identified symbol that links the history of the United States to the Masons.
Why do people become a Mason? There are various reasons why one would entertain becoming a Mason. Social status, networking, feeling of unity, giving back to others through charitable organizations, or maybe even the opportunity to be part of a secret organization. In the past, to become a Mason, one would have to be invited to join. In today's Masonry system, one can request to become a Mason. In general, they must go through a process. Later on, Jonathan will discuss the requirements that his lodge has.
Formed of freemen of good repute, and well recommended. The only other requirement would be a belief in God. It could be a Buddhist, it could be a Hindu, it could be any religion, but you must believe in God. Prior to getting into a lodge, you are reviewed by a character committee, and your wife is, or your family is also spoken with to see that they are in accord with your joining lodge.
As Jonathan discussed, to be eligible to become a Mason, one must meet the following criteria. 1, be a man of free will. In the olden days, this meant you cannot be a slave to join. 2, believe in God. 3, be a minimal age, usually between 18 and 25 years old. A Lewis or a son of a Mason often can join earlier. 4, be of good morals and reputation. And 5, be capable to provide character references.
You may have heard the saying, once a Mason, always a Mason. This saying, however, does not ring true. A Mason may send a letter of resignation in many jurisdictions. The lodge is required to read the communication or at least make it available to the members. Brotherhood is the most important principle that guides all Freemasons. Because of this, Masons work hard to show each other values in friendship, morality, and brotherly love. They understand that their bonds are strengthened or weakened through the interactions they have with each other. To show this brotherly bond, Masons have handshakes, use specific words, as well as symbols to identify themselves to one another. As we listen to Jonathan, notice his emphasis on family. To Jonathan, the Masons are his family.
Masonry, what does it mean? What does Masonry mean to you? Like, what does it mean to be a Mason?
Yeah, it means a Mason is, to me, it's like my family at this point. I think of it, you got to remember, I've gone to the top in all these groups, so, there's a lot of respect, that I get just by being present. I don't have to really do anything except show up, And then you school the younger guys that are coming in, with different things that it has to be, that you should be doing as a Mason. And, like anything else in life, people get problems. You get divorces or kids get in trouble, and we try to come to each other's, assistance.
In Masonry, one moves up the ranks through different completed tasks. The Masons call these achievements degrees. As our interviewee has discussed on a few occasions, the Freemason organizations have two well-known paths, or as they would say, rites. The two rites are the Scottish Rite and the York Rite. The rites are basically two different schools of thought. A Mason has the opportunity to join one or both of the rites. A Mason is not a voting brother until he has achieved the 3rd degree. When a Mason reaches the 4th degree, he has earned the right to vote at meeting. The Scottish Rite has 33 degrees. Degree 4 through 32 are earned degrees, and degree 33 is an honorary degree that is the highest honor a Mason in the Scottish Rite can receive. To put this in perspective, out of the 44 presidents of the United States, 14 earned the honor of the 33rd degree or Inspector General of Freemasonry. 2 stopped at the apprentice level. This includes President Clinton. Our interviewee is a 33rd Mason of the Scottish Rite and the top of the York Rite as well, which is the Cross of the Honor.
Arches, so to speak. One is called the Scottish Rite, and one is called the York Rite. And all that means is there's some different ritual and stories that are relayed as you go through the degrees. The idea is to take good men and make them better. The Scottish Rite culminates with an honorary degree called the 33rd degree. I have been a member, the head of a number of Scottish Rite bodies, as the Most Wise Master, as the Silent Prince, and as a First Lieutenant Commander. The commander being the head of the Scottish Rite bodies.
By listening to Jonathan, you can see that Masons take these degrees or rankings very seriously. As in most groups, they want to acquire status with the group's leads, Masons, to work hard to meet the demands of each rank.
How to study a Mason. Unfortunately, generations of Masons have taken their obligation of secrecy to mean that they couldn't discuss the fraternity outside the Masonic Hall at all. This leads to the problem that, with no information coming from the Masons, it's all too easy for people to fill in the holes with incorrect information or just plain lies. There is also a couple of centuries worth of folklore that has perpetuated the belief that Freemasons are a type of cult, or a group reserved for elitists and leaders. The trick is to pick out what is based in fact and what has been sensationalized by outsiders that are simply out for attention or to make a profit. For hundreds of years, members of the Freemason lodges themselves misunderstood what was meant by Masonic secrecy. The Mason secrecy is no different from any other fraternity or organization in that they're generally open, with the exception of specific practices. Just as we know everything about a company like Coca-Cola, the actual ingredients and the cola-making process is a company secret. There's actually a great deal of information available to the general public about the structure, beliefs, history, practices, current and historic members, and overall existence of the Fraternal Order of Masons.
Throughout our interview, Jonathan mentioned several times that charity was important to Masons. When researching, it was easy to see that charity is a guiding principle of the Freemasons. Shriners, which is known for their charity work, are made up of 100% of the Masons, and their 100% focus is giving back to those who need it. Jonathan recalls being at a Shriners Hospital function.
I went to a function for the patients of one of the Shrine temples in Philadelphia, and they had a routine where the boys and girls who were not Masons, they were dancing, and they put on a production. And at the end of that production, they all lifted their pants legs up, and every one of them was on steel legs and feet. And the amazing part of the program was one would never have realized that. It brings chills to the back of my neck even as I speak of it this day.
We asked Jonathan what the craziest memory he has acquired was because of being a Mason, and the memory he provided was one of a charitable nature.
Well, I wouldn't denote it exactly as crazy, but unique would be a situation in Southern Africa, where there was obviously a tribesman on the side of the road where the tour buses were traveling by, and he was giving a sign which Masons recognize as the Grand Hailing Sign of distress. And there were Masons on the bus, and they stopped the bus, and it turns out that his son was very ill. So the Masons that were on the bus made arrangements to fly the child to a hospital to have the child taken care of.
As you can tell, Masons view their journey through brotherhood as the journey for divine knowledge. We hope you've enjoyed this journey and have acquired some knowledge as well. Thank you.